Nice to be back.
Here we are.
Nice to be back.
Dynamics 365 shot first.
It's been a little while
It's been
actually.
a little while.
Been a few weeks.
It's been a few weeks. What have we been up to?
Just decorating.
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 Sanding, painting,
Yeah.
all that kind of nonsense.
I bought a mask to
Oh, did you?
sand
That's
down
pretty
like a
impressive.
proper World War II kind of style.
Really?
Yeah, a proper face cut because I bought a proper sander too.
Okay.
So it's like electric. The whole
I
whole
did
shebang.
my the bifold doors at the back of our house are wood, and every 5 years they need going over. So I sanded. Tools was away for the weekend, so I was sanding, and you do that thing after 20 minutes where you just kind of shake your head, and then at the end of the day you do this, and you kind of get all this gunk out of your eyes and things. It was,
Well, so I bought it and then it's been quite nice weather, so
The
I
weather
started
was okay.
sweating and the mask came straight off.
oh, I see.
So I've just been inhaling, just trying to keep the
Okay.
doors and windows open and then just inhaling all the dust.
All the
Like you
dust.
say,
Really
trying to
good for you.
periodically take like a 30-minute break. But let's have a beer.
Have a beer. That's probably worthwhile doing.
Yeah, it's truthfully pretty much what I've been doing, just enjoying the weather. Trying to have a beer here and there, try.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I've managed to fix up my motorbike. Its exhaust has finally been repaired,
Does it sound?
and it's
Sound nice?
Oh, it sounds it's quieter now because it sounded like a race bike for a little while, but so it would never have passed an MOT.
You can get. Again, I mean, allegedly, you can get.
Was that right? You
MOTs
kind
with-
of,
Especially
you
the
get
MOTs,
nudged away,
like-
absolutely. Yeah,
Not
no,
that we'd advocate anyone.
no,
get a dodgy
absolutely.
MOT,
But
but
a bit
it's
loud,
a
loud pipes save lives.
so
That's
they
what they
let
say.
you come in. You don't have
Yeah,
to
they
worry
come
about
in,
being hit by a
absolutely.
car.
Yeah, exactly. They'll
That's
jump
a safety
right out
feature
your way.
you've added on yourself.
I like occasionally getting slightly too close to a newish MG because if you get into their blind spot, it sets off all their hazard lights.
See, James has one of those, so we could annoy
Oh
James.
no,
on
no,
that.
his is a Hyundai, isn't it, or something like that?
I thought you got a MG.
No, Hyundai.
Oh,
Hyundai.
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 When you were first looking at it, you thought about getting an MG, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah. Since I remember you said. Sorry, guys, we're just chatting to our producer,
Producer.
Offset, about company cars. Really not quite on topic.
No,
But that's Phil and Charlie for you really wrapped up.
yeah.
You'll get there
Slightly,
eventually.
yeah, we'll get there in the end. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what did you want to talk about?
What are we going to talk
today?
about? We are talking about, it's written over there actually, it says Microsoft's AI across Business Central and CE.
What's real?
What's real and what's hype?
Oh, Phil using the younger terms.
Oh, yeah, I'm
Is
down
hype
with the kids.
the younger term still?
Yeah,
It can't be.
no, no.
Nowadays, that's.
No, I told somebody off online for. I said you're making a lot of noise, and their response was that they liked. They'd been to a rock concert and they liked the noise. Didn't engage any further with
You
them.
just paused.
I just paused and I thought,
Yeah.
perhaps this is not a conversation that I want to be involved
So
in.
your phrase I would use there is you've checked your mirrors.
Check my mirrors.
Yeah, and you've gone, I don't like what's behind me, so I'm just gonna.
Just okay. I like that Ted Lasso. I watched a lot of Ted Lasso over the last couple of months, and he says, let the rude word here, let it flow past you, just down. Don't let it stick to you. Just let it flow on past you. Maybe that, and that's also a wise thing.
Yep, sometimes.
Just let it go. Let it go.
I feel like letting it go is the easiest thing you can do in life. Sometimes the hardest.
It is the hardest.
It's either the
But
hardest or the
I
easiest.
suppose it's always that thing, isn't it? You're always told as a kid, pick your battles, and it's not always easier said than done. I think.
Relating this back to consultancy in some way, you're
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
Sometimes you've got to let the client win, and
Yeah, absolutely.
sometimes it's your job to put up a word and.
And to say absolutely to say no to a customer, I think to being able to say no is a very important thing. I think it's make sure that you don't just say no and it's a flat no. I think it has to be a no with an offer of at least one or two
Structured.
alternatives. Yeah,
A
a
structured
structured no. Yeah,
No with a solution,
yeah, absolutely.
or
absolutely.
a no with a reason,
Yeah, no with a reason is really important as a consultant.
and not just for clients, for project managers. I'm getting quite good at the saying no thing.
Saying
The
no.
more experience I get, the better at it I am.
And a better absolutely, it is a thing, isn't it?
And they're like, "Oh, can you just do this quickly?" And it's like, "Well, I could, but
Yes.
that would ruin the whole flow of what I'm doing today."
Yes,
so
and they
so
go,
no, I'll book it in for tomorrow or the day after, or whenever I've got time in the calendar.
This is part of the joy of consultancy. Really is in the engagement and the learning that you do, and being able to sort of fight fight your corner.
Because when I started, you just kind of say yes to everything because you want to just learn.
You learn, and you kind of feel that, you know, it's. I always say to people, work is not like school. You know, it's at school might be set a task and you'd have all day or whatever to try and fix it. And I always say to people, look, if you can't fix it in 20 minutes, come back to me, because this is not school. It's an opportunity to learn by all means, but make sure that, you know, you just don't waste time, because as a consultant, we're a really expensive resource, right? God only knows what 20 minutes costs a customer. So, you know, make sure that you come back to people and always make sure you're engaged with them. So.
That's something I've learned actually as well a lot recently. I've been covering quite a lot recently, and like you say, when someone's off and you don't know something, so, you know, whether it's jet reports in BC or you know, which third-party add-ons, and, you know, I mean, that's quite a poor example because most BC consultants can do jet reports on most projects, but there'll be third-party, you know, resources and apps, like they've just recently changed their name, so if I butcher this,
Okay.
it's Amvigo. It used to be called Amvigo or something along those lines.
Right.
They've rebranded, so it's now got like an A and an I that they didn't have previously.
Wow. Okay. That'd be annoying. Sounds annoying.
But that's for like service and warehousing
Right.
and things like that. So it's not you know, there's not many companies that we've done so far. You know, fairly new practice, fairly small team. You know, warehousing, manufacturing's fine, but service and things like that are a bit more
Different.
technical, a bit more tough. Yeah, a lot more development needs to be done, a lot more structure on that side of things. And this app is one of those examples where, like I say, if you're trying to cover someone and you've not done it before,
Then it'd be
sometimes you've just got to communicate and just be like honest and open with the customer.
Honest.
This might take longer because
Yeah. Honest, I think is sometimes you know, you do occasionally meet consultants who are all about the really, all about the we can do whatever. But I think it's you know, it helps everybody basically involved, project managers, clients, and yourself is to be honest and truth. But, you know, sort of try not to sell yourself short, because that's easy to do. We all get imposter syndrome and stuff occasionally. So, but
I think sometimes that's a benefit. Sell yourself short and overachieve.
yeah,
That's it.
yeah, undersell and over deliver.
Yeah, I think I try and go on, just pretend I know nothing, then when I do quite a lot, you'll be very
they're like,
impressed.
wow, he's amazing.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. Tell them it'll take 3 weeks, do it in one, and then they're like, whoa. No, you've got to find the balance between underselling and overselling.
Yeah.
The art of the possible.
We're also going to talk a little bit today about top 5 tools. So for you, it'll be BC stuff, and for me, Power Platformy stuff that we would take to a desert island.
So I'm going to take Desert Island, just a blank slate, a blank project. What are 5 things?
No, I thought it was going to be a nice desert island.
I wouldn't take anything.
I wouldn't take any technical stuff.
I quite enjoy the job, but if I'm going to Desert Island on water, a boat, there's no Power Platform.
There's
coming
no
with
Power
this
Platform
thing
on
tonight,
the desert
yeah.
island. No, you're right.
So we're going to have to stick with the
No, I
project.
was
aspect.
thinking suntan lotion, but
I'll just get a tan.
you just get tan. Oh yeah, no, I need suntan lotion.
Could be a nice
Look at
desert.
me, Just might be a nice place. But top 5 Power Platform things. I'm going to go number 1. I'm just going to go with Dataverse, which is possibly a bit of a lazy answer, but that's, you know, which in theory, if you're using Power Automate, for example, you don't necessarily need a Dataverse.
SharePoint. Could use SharePoint connector.
You can use SharePoint connectors and things like that. That's right. You still end up having, I think, underneath, because you've got to store the Power Automate flows somewhere. I think there must be a version of Dataverse that they live in. I need to think more about that one. If we're going other tools, I'd say always Power Pages, which is our portal.
It's quite a big one nowadays.
It is. It's always installed. First thing, if you go into a C environment, when you spin one up, go and have a look in the tables. You will see in there ADX underscore blah blah blah. ADX being the guys who originally wrote the software that Microsoft bought. It's about 10 years ago now. Yeah, that's up there. Really, really powerful. The only time it ever sort of lets me down really is when I end up with things like licensing issues and stuff like that. Suddenly somebody goes to me, I want 20,000 people to be able to log in, and I'm like, oh, well, that's going to cost you a lot in terms of licensing.
Let's relax.
Yeah, let's say, you know, and that's when we end up going towards building custom stuff.
So far, Dataverse, Power Pages.
Power Pages.
Got 3 more.
We've got 3 more. What am I going to throw in there? Additional tools that I would put in And I was thinking more of actually components within the Power Platform themselves, things like actions and stuff. You get those anyway. So maybe, would I take Power BI with me? Would I take Power BI anywhere? I'm less of a Power BI fan, I'll be honest.
Okay.
It's just, I've always found, the licensing always ends up tripping people up.
Yeah, see, we've had this on BC at the moment, so you can embed
Right.
Power BI and
Yes.
BC, and it is quite useful. But it has to be on your workspace. You have to have pro licensing, although
Yep.
the
If you wanna be able to
guidelines
share it,
effectively say that if you've got a premium or essentials license on BC, that you can do it. We're finding that that's not quite
yeah, it's not
quite the experience that we've had
no,
recently. You
absolutely.
need a pro license in Power BI.
Because the thing is, the great thing about CRM is that we've always had dashboards in there. So we have low-level charting and SSRS reporting as part of the product anyway. So yeah, a lot of the time that can take you an awfully long way without any additional pain. But the Power BI looks nicer, and if you're going to drive into, if you want to get data from lots of multiple sources, then Power BI would be more of your friend.
That's it. So basically, we've got loads of reports, and like you say, out-of-the-box reporting, things you can use that are just figures and numbers.
Yeah.
But it's when clients come from something like Sage or where it has nice reporting software and dashboards, and it looks pretty and has some nice colours. That's when you've got users used to that, and then you look at just numbers and white and black. It's not quite.
Yeah. I always get upset when clients go, "Can I have more reports, please?" And you go, "What do you mean?" And they go, "I want a report and I want to be able to export it to Excel." And I'm like, I've got a dashboard here for you. I've got all these lovely views. You can filter, you can cut them in multiple different ways, and
Exporting to Excel is BC's best friend.
they always want to export to Excel, and you're like, "Oh no!" And then somebody somewhere goes, "Oh my goodness, can I export all the data from the system?" You go, "You did just ask for that." So it's interesting. I suppose we have reports where you could you prevent them from actually doing some of that stuff, but a bit of a pain point there.
So sorry, I did interrupt you. Power Pages.
I got Power Pages,
Dataverse.
I didn't want to take Power BI.
So you're still on your phone.
No, or whatever. What else do I want to take in terms of tooling? I like bits of Canvas apps. Canvas apps, I like them when I can embed them as part of a model-driven app.
I was about to say, you're the kind of guy that does a Canvas app to then embed it in a
in a model-driven app. Yeah. Well, I generally, because we lost Dialogues. Dialogues was this tool available in CRM for a long time, and it was really cool because it could do things like it could loop through data and show you lists and stuff, so you could quickly put together like wizard pages, and you can't do that any longer. And so the only way to do an equivalency, of course, is through these pages, which is basically a Microsoft saying, okay, well, how can we replace Dialogues now? We've dropped them. Great, we'll come up with this means of doing it through Canvas apps instead. But they fit really nicely. So often in Dynamics and CRM and CE, you might have a custom data model. It's quite large, and so if you want to add something to another, you want to link two items, it might become a little bit complicated with a number of awkward clicks and things like that. And then it's really, really straightforward ordinarily just to put a page together that can tie together your data model in a slightly more, less clicky way. So yeah, I'm gonna throw pages in there as well, because that's always useful. Portals, pages, Canvas apps.
Pages. So they used to be cool.
It's really annoying. There's so much. We could also talk about managed environments, and managed solutions. They would definitely come in with me.
I'm going to say that is your...
Oh, I'm going to throw them all in. I'm going to throw them all in there, and that's got to be a top 5.
When I first met you, that's what you taught me.
Was it?
About managed environments and how that works. When
Yeah.
I first got introduced to CE.
Yeah, managed solutions and stuff as well. There's a lot of words which get used again and again. Things like, a page in terms of a dynamic solution is not the same thing as a page in Power Pages, because Power Pages, I don't know why they're called Power Pages, really.
They just love the word power.
They do.
Power Automate,
Power
Power
BI.
Apps, Power BI.
Oh,
Power
absolutely.
Pages.
If you ever got a slide up about the Power Platform,
Power Platform.
power this, power that, power
Maybe
that.
that's what they did. Power Platform. They just put power on everything.
Yeah, absolutely. It works though, right? Got to love all that low-code stuff for your citizen developer.
Oh, he's on the tightrope
Oh,
there. He's
that's
on the
right.
tightrope there.
Can't call them a citizen developer.
I think it's one of those, like you said, we were talking before this, and like you said, it's quite demeaning almost if you're quite a good, I'm going to call sit dev.
Sit dev.
Yeah, if you're quite a good sit
Is there
dev.
a hyphen in between?
Yeah, I'm not very good at English or grammar, so I'd probably just one word, a lowercase.
But then you're going to have that little red squiggle underneath it.
See, I've installed Grammarly recently, and it gives me a red or yellow or blue line under most of the words.
You're like, you can't keep making up words.
Yeah,
Yes, I
most
can.
of the words I use, and
Do you understand me? Yes. Then in that case, the word's okay.
but yeah, sit dev. You're right. It can be quite demeaning if you're quite a good, or you have at least some sort of understanding of what it's doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, we'll get more into that later, right?
Yeah.
Where we're on about AI and how sit devs are now using that to properly develop.
Yeah. Yeah, no, vibe coding it's still coding, right? So
Yeah, I guess the word developing is quite a loose term, really.
it is really in terms of the
So
technologies involved.
Good or
yeah.
best practice or
Absolutely.
functioning. All different
Yeah.
ways to describe what AI can produce.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've always been a fan of if it works, use it, right? But depending upon cost and resource and all these different things.
The thing I love about sit devs, we've got to coin a better term than that. So I don't like it.
So I went to a user group in the week and met a guy from Network Rail, and they've got a lot of sit devs, and they call them, I think, business developers or something like that, rather than citizen developers.
In the biz.
Yeah, I think that's closer, right? Because they're experts generally in their field. And like you say, sit dev's a bit okay. You're not a proper developer. You're a citizen developer. Yes, business subject matter expert.
Yeah, something along those lines.
Something along those lines.
Yeah.
I will check that out a bit later, and I'll come back with with the right words for it.
Going forward, we'll have a better.
Yeah, we'll come up with something for that. But we don't. So we're going to have a little segment there. What are you going? Just give me a top 5.
You haven't finished your top 5, eh?
No, I did. I put in managed environments and something else. So
my top 5. You want to
your
talk
top
about
5.
Well, I want to revert back to yours.
Okay.
I want to first go.
Okay, my top 5. So we were dancing around it, and we got Dataverse in there. We've got Power Pages. We've got managed environments. We have not got Power BI. There's going to be loads of people going, why? Power BI is amazing. Managed environments, managed solutions, and all that good ALM stuff that I think.
Classing that as 2. Managed environments and managed solutions.
Managed environments is very different to a managed solution.
But can you have a managed environment without any managed solutions within it?
Yes, you can. You can have a managed environment without a managed solution. Yeah, absolutely.
I like this too.
I mean, it's a very confusing. Whenever you use the word managed in CRM land, it ends up being lost, doesn't it? And then I'm going to throw on the edge there DevOps to go with my managed environments. There you go, top 5.
I like it. So you're going structure.
Structure, yeah. I think, it's really important.
I'm going to take your first one, actually. DevOps, I think it's an essential for PC.
All right.
We use that consistently all the time because we're
just kind of managing use cases and stuff like that and stories.
You've just got to keep track of what's going on. Like so you do discovery, you do your discovery, and you'll try and harness what parts of business central they want to use. Are they going to need service? Are they going to need manufacturing? Do they just buy and sell? Are they just using it as like a bookkeeping aspect of their business? So you do DevOps. You find out in the discovery what they want. In DevOps, you try and define everything you think they're going to need based on your 2-3 days on site of discovery, whatever it is. Not always on site. Sometimes if it's not a big business or it's a small project, you might not do it on site. Again, depending on budget because they have to pay expenses. So DevOps is an essential, especially for us consultants. So if you're practice lead or your senior consultants are on site doing discovery, for someone new like myself, who's just trying to build the system out as much as I can, pad it out to save them time. So when they're on the project, they haven't got to do all the little bits that are just anyone can do. It's just basic config, like your units of measure or work calendars and things like that.
Okay.
It's not.
So do you put together? Do you use like a Kanban board and just sort of say, I know I've got this one to do, unit of measurement, and then you go, yes, I've done that bit, and you move it across into a column to check its status, or
like sprints and things like that.
Yeah. Okay, so you're using it. Okay, so you still use a board metaphor to.
Depends. We've obviously only got one project manager, so
Right.
It's very much how Amy wants to do it.
Okay.
So whether that's a standard or that's
No,
Amy's
it's-
way of working,
yeah.
that's working great so far, where you just, like you say, you'll have your epic and you just work your way down, all the way down to user story. So your epic might be the module you're in, so whether it's sales or purchasing or manufacturing or warehousing or service,
Right.
and then you just work your way down effectively. So DevOps will be my first one.
Okay.
And again, then if there's needing development done on any of those user stories, it's essential that you've got defined requirements,
Absolutely.
and you know where the dev's up to, then you know what to test, and has it been tested, who's done the testing, let's get it signed off by the client. You've got to get these things done.
Control, right.
Well, that's it, which might be a little bit different to see. Do you get clients to sign each piece off in DevOps?
Yeah, it depends on obviously the scale of the project we're trying to put together. But if there's a lot of custom work in there, then you want to be able to sort of, you effectively get a sign off on a high level design first. Well, because there's a lot of ideas in there that you need to communicate with a customer. Because I think we probably talked about it before on the blog, but on the podcast and on blogs as well, that you've got to engage. There's as much hearts and minds when you're building some of these systems as there is anything else, right? And it's important to make sure that they're engaged and that they buy into what you're selling. Really, chances are, effectively, they're already paid for it. They don't have a choice, right? I say they have no choice. They've already engaged, they've looked around the market, they've come to you, you've come up with a high level solution, and then you sort of start, when you drill into the detail of it, that's the point that you want to drag them along with you and say, okay, because you want them to, you start testing stuff. As soon as you have the idea, you're starting to test it in your head. Okay, how is that going to work? How is that going to fit in the system? And then, there comes the actual build part of the process eventually, and that's traditionally where people go, oh, that's where you do your testing. But it starts a long way before that, and a customer is involved in that because they need to understand that this is theirs at the end of the day. At some point, consultancy, we're leaving, right? We're going on to the next project. An organization like Formus is going to be providing support, but it may well be that they need to work and continue to work with that. So they need to be engaged and take control of it to an extent. So
100%. So DevOps, my first one. Power Automate is my second.
Okay.
Surprised you didn't steal it.
Okay.
Just because I think workflows in BC are going to get deprecated at some point, or slowly worked out, and there's a lot they can't do efficiently. And as a newer, I appreciate any experienced BC consultants that are listening are going to be like, I love workflows. Workflows are what I've done for 15 years.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm coming in with a new tech. I don't like workflows. I did start on a CE background, so maybe that's why. But Power Automate's just easier to do. It's just more efficient. It's better. There's more connectors. Workflows that can't connect to anything else outside of BC, which is already limited at that factor.
Yeah.
If you want to.
Yeah, Power Automate it's changed the face of it in a huge way in terms of, being able to do, smaller integrations and things like that. I know there's a big movement in the Power Platform group that Power Automate is not Power Integration, but it's still if it's a smaller integration, then normally it fits quite well and it's very cost effective.
Well, this is it. It's perfect, right? Whether you're doing approvals or you're pulling whatever it is. I just pull loads into Teams for clients at the moment. That's right. Clients use Teams. If you've got 5 approvers who obviously have a normal job, whether it's purchasing or they're a sales ledger manager, whether they've got to approve either side of that, they're going to want it in Teams or on an email because it's easier than logging into BC and checking.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's things like that, right, that are just, you don't want to write code for. Power Automate does. You can't do it through a workflow. Power Automate's essential if you want to make it more seamless for the users.
Yeah.
It's essential.
It's a good shout. It's a good shout.
Although there are a lot of faults in BC Power Automate. So like if you want to, see you can do an update document or an update record. It'll be You can't. That doesn't work. There's a connector for it in BC. Doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
No, we tried that. You have to do like a run action and then create a workflow in BC that will do the action. It's quite a.
Because ultimately you're talking to an API, right? Because each of you, the way your stuff is exposed is purely as APIs within a company, which is inside an
An
environment.
environment. Yeah.
I'm sure we've done some Power Automate stuff where I've done updating records effectively. in order
It's,
to-
we're trying to do it on approvals and things. You have to do a run action.
Okay, for approvals. Okay, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, more simple stuff you might be able to update document, but it didn't work for an approval.
Yeah, no, well, I think an approval's a slightly weird thing because even the installation of an approval in Power Platform is you have to run a flow first, and then it installs all of the solutions for it, which is the only time I've ever seen a solution get installed that way.
Yeah, so we'll go Power Automate for a second.
Okay.
I think that's for me an essential, especially with what I'm doing now. I'm trying to do Power Automate more than workflow.
Yeah.
They're just better. And again, it allows you to use things like Azure, which if you've got a CE integration or a CE side of it, you can have everyone in Azure anyway. So if you want to do security groups and bring things over that way, it's just hands down better than workflows and anything else in that way. What else am I going to use? I think then I'm going to cheat and go to modules rather than Power Platform. We'll get rid of DevOps. Well, obviously we'll keep DevOps, Power Automate. Sorry. Then going to go. I don't know what else I'd want to use. Oh, Jet Reports, third-party extension. Jet Reports, Continua, two that are on most projects.
Are you doing? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing most implementations. Well, that is two very used extensions. What else am I going to use then? That's not part of BC. BC's just so good. Don't need five things.
Don't need 5 things. There you go.
No.
Top 5 done.
And then I'm going to Tasklet. We use Tasklet a lot for like warehousing and manufacturing. So it's three extensions to. Well, DevOps isn't. DevOps Power Platform. It's like Azure, isn't it technically?
Yeah, Azure. Yeah.
So. Yeah, no Power Automate is. But we kind of skirted the edge there. But it'll do. So Power Automate, DevOps, Tasklet, Continua.
So it's interesting. The thing that we've got
And Jet
covering both of us is DevOps, right? Which is not technically Power Platform and not technically BC.
A lot of companies use things like Jira.
Yeah. I've used Jira with a couple of our customers have said we want you to use Jira, and I've always ended up having a little bit of a struggle with it because I'm, sort of as soon as I'm doing DevOps, then I know that I'm baking stuff into my ALM, which is nice, and then I'm also, if I'm doing code and I'm doing any branches or whatever for my code, then I know great, I can hook that up to my ticket, and it's all nicely tied together. So yeah, big fan of.
It's just good. It's just the best way, really.
Yeah, it brings a load of stuff together.
And the visibility is what I like. Like you say, you can see the code, you can see who's worked on it, you can see the discussion, you can see the original requirement.
Yeah.
You can see who's got it, you can see what status it's at, you can see the priority, you can run queries.
Yeah.
It's just good. I mean, I've not used Jira, so I can't comment whether that does.
I think there's
any of those
similar.
things.
Yeah, I think there's similar levels of connectivity, and it's like like all automation tools. They all have to a greater or lesser extent similar functionality. I suppose it's about the volume that's available to you. In Power Automate, I've lost count of how many connectors it's got. Thousands,
A lot,
isn't it?
a lot.
Thousands.
More than I'd use.
Yeah, more than I use. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's all that matters.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing with BC, right? Again, probably, I don't know. I probably should know this from C. It's been a while. When you create a custom field in C, have you got to expose that field to Power Automate, or will it just be there by standard? So in BC, you'd have to know AL code, and because it's APIs, if it's not standard, anything you want to see. It's like when I'm doing approvals with expenses, we've got to expose all of Continuous tables to Power Automate in the API. So I've got to know AL. Well, I don't know AL. That's a lie. I've got to talk to my developer and ask him to expose the table numbers or table names or whatever it is he needs and the exact fields I want.
This is it. Sort of for the data synchronization tool, it's a bit of a bugbear for me that sort of. I think the previous version, when you used to create a custom code on the CE side, that the tooling was able to pick up the custom code. But that was a version I used, probably 10 years ago, if not longer. Whereas the existing version, you only get to see the out-of-the-box fields on the CE side. So it's clearly there's some limitation within that underlying tooling, because obviously, once you create something and publish a field within Dynamics, it's available across the entirety of its API. assuming you've flicked a couple of switches. But I ended up having to talk to one of your AL devs, and he was like, okay, no, I'm going to actually have to do some work here in order to be able to see some of the CE fields in order to synchronize them up. But I guess that's,
It's just the quirks of
the quirks
of BC, I guess.
Quirks,
Just,
right.
Yeah, it's still interesting. Even just having its own code base is probably inconvenient for devs.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's all part of the fun, Phil.
It's all part of the fun.
Anyway, I mean, getting on to AI. The big
whatever.
The big
What's
letters.
real and what's hype? I'm going to throw something out there. I'm going to go, the hype is something I think that it appears around AI generally, but from a Microsoft and a sort of Power Platform, or so which is generally referred to as Copilot stuff in the Microsoft world. The hype is expected. It mostly works. If you want to build an autonomous agent, because you've got all the Power Platform stuff, and particularly all the Power Automate stuff available to you, there is so much connectivity available to you there. And most of any trigger that you can use within Power Automate, so anyone who's a Power Automate developer can come along and go, they're going to start building a Copilot and go, hang on, this is all stuff I recognize. And so, you're not throwing away huge, amounts of knowledge that customers have. You're able to bring that on board and merge that with some of the Copilot knowledge. So
you think a lot of it is not hype?
A lot of it is not hype. I think there are some limits within some of the tooling. So Microsoft's kind of you've got agents which are available to you on the vanilla Copilot page, and then you've got agents you can build, and autonomous agents within Copilot Studio, and then you've got the AI Foundry at the other end, which is when you actually drive into Azure, and if you want to do indexing of files or what have you, then you can use Azure AI Search.
Yeah, see, this is where I wanted to challenge you almost. So I've got a challenge, a spanner I want to throw in the works, and I want to query you on something that I don't know.
Okay, go for it.
So the spanner first, go a bit of drama, spice it up, bit of paprika in our podcast. So you think it's all, well, not all hype?
No, I think
I've used Power Automate a lot. I know
Yes.
a lot of people use Power Automate.
Mhm.
I think consultants dislike.
I know where you're going to go with
the
this.
Copilot.
The Copilot for
I think most people turn the new designer off.
I think then it's like all new designers or new front ends. Eventually, the old one's going to get deprecated, so you have to kind of suck it up. I remember for sort of 3 or 4 years ago, people would go, "I'm still using the old solution architecture, the solution tool," and I'd go to them, "You got to get used to the new one because at some point that's going to get switched off." Now it still exists in a lot of environments, so eat my words there. But it's the new tooling is it's worth engaging with. Sometimes I feel that a designer puts something together rather than somebody who has to use it day in, day out. But more often than not, a lot of the new facilities within it, for example, things like searching across fields, that was never available in the old one, and you'd think that would be something you'd do from day one. But it's there in the new world, so I think it's important to be able to play with it. But in answer coming back to the AI thing, yes, some of the Copilots, and I think Copilot for Power Automate, there's bits of it I've used in terms of if I need to know something about PowerFX, I'll say, okay, what's the best way to use this? And it might give me the PowerFX syntax. And I wonder if that is if you know the tooling already, sometimes the Copilot can be a bit superfluous. So I know we've talked before about BC, right? You have a Copilot in BC that allows you to create a sales order, and you know where this is going. It's like, well, it'd take me about 20 seconds to do a sales order just using the UI. So why would I go through the whole having to type into a Copilot,
Yes.
I want to build a sales, and it asks me the question one at a time and all the rest of it.
This is where I'd say CE might be real world use to it, and you might use a lot of it. Whereas BC, again, like I appreciate clients might use the Copilot, and clients might find.
Maybe senior
Tons.
management who drive into it once a month or something.
This is it, yeah. So you might
Reports,
go, can you generate me a report for my financial year 23-24? it can. But I'd argue, if you're doing an implementation, there should be training and documentation, and all of this is available to you already, and it should all be common knowledge. Like creating a sales order, if you need Copilot to do that, I'd argue you missed out on some training.
Yeah.
And there's other fundamental issues going on. However, I do acknowledge there'll be people that join your team after the implementation's carried out, years after, right? So say you had an implementation 2 years ago. If you've only just joined the company and you've never used BC before, you might be like, and someone goes, oh, we've got these 10 sales orders that need to be made. You might be like, oh no, oh crap.
How am I going to do it?
How am I going to do that? Copilot's going to do it. You can do it. So is it hype? Are they doing it just to get it across all of their platforms? Possibly. Could it be useful in the future? Yeah.
It would be interesting, right?
Use cases, but
there's a certain noise within the AI community in terms of the best UI is no UI. Have you heard that one?
No.
And I'm like, hang on. I know most, end users, they like having a dashboard. They like being able to see all their numbers and things like that. The idea of having to ask an AI first to give you some of that seems slightly odd to me. I think AI is really powerful for people who don't jump into a system very often, and I think it's really useful for people from a coding and a developing perspective. There's do you talk a little bit about vibe coding?
Yeah, I mean, I am actually. We had a conversation about this before. I do like AI. I think it is brilliant. There's a lot of use cases for it, and I am one of them. Like I said, if I didn't have a developer that I could access so easily by just messaging Simon or Dom to get a field exposed to an API, I don't know the code very well. Could I learn it? Yes. Do I want to? No. It's not something that I'm willing to try and absorb yet.
So it takes a lot of skill, right?
It's a lot of, because you also have to fundamentally understand how all these tables connect in BC. You change something in table X, table Y is going to have an effect.
Right.
So that's the fundamental. You have to understand BC to even think about changing the code, because you might know what the code does, but if you change something and you don't know how it affects something else, you're going to cause a cataclysmic size error.
And this is something that it's interesting to sort of. IT has always fought off elements of shadow IT, right? So historically, Excel systems like littering people's, sort of IT architecture, and their landscape is full of these tiny little bits of technology being managed by users. And you got to wonder about whether or not AI, there was this noise also made about, for low code, sort of 5-6 years ago, Power Platform. Everyone was like, oh my goodness, we're going to have all of these citizen developers creating more shadow IT. But what's happened instead is that by inviting them into the platform and within a set of environments, you have a bit more visibility of them. So I wonder whether or not AI might go the other way. So thinking in terms of vibe coding, the others that you can say to it, I want a website and I want it to look a bit like this, and give me everything and tell me all I need to do in order to build it. And if that was done as part of, sort of potentially, I don't know, done in Azure or somewhere like that, because that's what you've got access to, or potentially they build it in Amazon Web Services, it's like, are we going to have visibility? Are we going to start creating these little pockets of code? And how are we going to manage control for them?
So that's the con side of it, but then the pro side of it is, as we've said previously, right, you need to bring these people in. If they're the super users, if they're the ones that are doing the work at the end of the day, when we're gone.
Yeah.
That sounds quite gloomy, but when we've left, gone's probably not the right word. When we've departed the project and we're
going to use any more euphemisms for when we're gone, when we're dead, when we've fallen, when we've cocked it. No.
Just start using hand signals.
Yeah.
You've got to bring them into the project and get them engulfed in what's going on, and try and get them to understand. And also, like, you see companies like Kodak who, again, I'm not throwing another use of shade here, but not throwing shade, but they didn't innovate enough. And could that have been prevented if you had 1,000 users going, oh, what if I did this? What if I span this? Or what does this look like when I do this? If you
Right.
have all of that being brought to management and all that is visible and it can be controlled, if if you can do all that,
Which is why Power Platform in itself is a great tool for bringing that all together. But it'll be interesting to see how the use of AI and uncontrolled AI within IT environments is potentially going to create different pockets outside of a governance framework. So that's, I suppose, is the danger of something like,
because I see the
coding.
brilliant side of that is people from different backgrounds, different ethnic religions. Whether we're here or you're in India or
Yeah.
you're going to think of something in a process that I might not. Like Japan use phrases like Kaizen, which is continuous improvement, and all of this. And if you've got people trying to continually improve the system, you're going to in 3 years be 5 times better than you were this
absolutely.
year, because you've got 1,000 different ideas. Don't get me wrong, 999 of them might be crap. But, you might get one that you're like, wow, that's
And it could be a big
5 years
game
ago,
changer,
a
right?
BC consultant might go, I'm not using Power Automate to do an approval in Teams because you don't need to, just do it in BC. Whereas now you're like, if you can get a sit dev to create a Power Automate flow using Copilot potentially into Teams, it might take them a while, but even just sourcing the idea of that and going, oh, we can just get the PDF converted into Teams and Outlook rather than always going and logging into BC. Oh, we don't need a license to do that because you can use a service account. And there's all these possible ways that you might not even think of as a manager or a director or something.
Or as even as a developer or as a consultant, because you end up trying to, a lot of the times, I'd say I do stuff the same way, maybe again and again. I certainly do create a certain number of patterns, but I think I always try and make sure that.
Well, so as humans, we're built to, not built to, but we tend to always have behaviours and patterns.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like if we're constantly building something in the same way because it's how I was shown it or how you were shown it. Someone does think, I might see a sit dev do something. I'll go, wow, that's a great way of doing it.
That's
I've
a
not
better
thought of
way
that
of doing
before.
it,
How many times have we been on calls and you've seen another consultant do something? Oh wow, I've not.
Yeah, that's cool.
I've
Yeah.
not done that way before. That's a great idea. So I think it is dangerous in a lot of situations where if it's not governed and not managed and could create a lot of hassle and a lot of data risk. Again, when it comes to permissions and things like that, what can you see? What can you access? Where can you store it? Policies.
This again, that's the danger of any AI stuff. Really, is that it might be able to step out of your governance. As a Power Platform practitioner, I'm like, okay, we've got data loss prevention policies, DLP policies, and we can control a certain amount of that. But I wonder whether or not vibe coding and some of that will step outside of what we control. But I guess that's a bigger sort of IT picture.
Well, that's it. And then the risk with vibe coding, right, is like I said previously, like if I was let loose on a system with AL code and had access to the AL code, which I do on most systems as a consultant, if I was vibe coding, trying to implement something that I don't know, I can read the code and understand what it's doing, but if I don't understand how X affects Y, it might be right, it might work on my table. And on the page I'm trying to edit, it might go great. I might expose the field to the API, I might make a new field.
You're like, good, this is working.
Yeah, it's working a charm. On X, Y, and Z, it could be causing major issues in reporting or in the GL entries or whatever it is, and you just, if you're not aware of what's going on and you don't even look at that side of the system, it's vibe code. And again, like you say, although I have access to it all, and
that's the thing, isn't it?
I'm trying to change that. If you don't understand how it connects, there is a risk that.
I mean, that it's all about. I mean, it's always been about risk versus reward, right? IT. How much time do we spend building a system, designing, developing a system, and making sure it's controlled and it works, particularly, which is really important if it's their key business process, which you've baked into your IT. If you try and play fast and loose with those, there are certain organizations which will allow you to do that. But I think as long as there's enough control and governance on your existing business processes, and that you allow for vibe coding, and then ensure that people are sort of visible and engaged, then hopefully it's all to the good, right? Hopefully you want to build something. I think Scott Hanselman described it as vibe coding is great for stuff that you don't care about. In the same way that you might let, we're calling them citizen devs or business developers, build something in Power Platform that ultimately you don't care about too much, because as soon as it becomes something that's important for the business, then that's when you want to grab hold of it from an IT perspective and make sure that it becomes taken care of and it has process and it has control and it's tested and that the data is good and all that kind of good stuff.
Like I say, it's essential that happens because you want the improvements, you want this innovation, you want the interaction from the users. That would be a perfect situation, right?
Absolutely.
Where you implement something and they're already spinning up their own environments and going, oh, look at what I did in CDX, and look at this I created, look at what you can do with this, look how I manipulated this.
Dev environments and all that kind of good stuff in Power Platform.
And then, like say, you see something and you can go, oh, that's a good idea actually. Let's try and implement it in a way that's functional and safe
and safe and controlled.
That's a good idea. And it's like an ideas board almost. It's like what is it we use with the sticky notes on when we have like training days? I don't know. I'll have to think of another one. That's going to hurt my brain.
Yeah, but you're right. I mean, you want to engage as many people as possible within the process, but at the point that it becomes, you bake it into a solid process. At that point, that's when you want to apply control during that whole build process.
It's related back to things like DevOps. So it's a great idea.
And which is why
it
ended up on our top 5 for both of us.
Yeah, I think it's good it did. It shows we like structure and
the structure and the control is really a really important part of it.
Yeah, I mean it's only so agile you can be.
Absolutely. Loosey goosey.
Scope creepy.
Yeah, that's always a pain point, isn't it, with that job?
I guess that's the other issue with business developers, right? Is there's no scope. It's just whatever they want.
Whatever they want, when they want. Yeah. And that's, sort of IT. You don't want a project to go on forever and ever, right? It has to have
Well, you haven't got an unlimited budget. That's
exactly.
The crux of it all, really. Is, a lot of things, you're right, it might be a great idea to implement that, and I see what you've done, it's great, but it's 5 to 10 days. You haven't got 10 grand spare. It's not for that anyway. It's not to the company that doesn't provide £10,000 worth of value. That's what it all comes back to. At the end of the day,
that whole ROI thing.
Is the value there for them, or is it not? Like it might be really useful for you, but
so what do we think? Do we think that AI is going to give us this return on investment? I mean, it certainly hasn't at the moment.
So do you think it's real or hype?
I'm gonna go real. I always describe myself as an AI optimist, and I think that there's a lot that it can do in terms of taking away all the rubbish jobs and freeing up people to be more innovative and to do more exciting things and to do better things ultimately for the business. But when that's going to actually, like all new technologies, I think it's going to take a little while before.
So in CE you're saying real.
In CE I'm going to say real.
In BC, I'm going to contrast you. I'm saying hype.
You're going hype?
Because we're back-end users, right? It's the back end of a company, BC mainly. It's the functional, it's the ops team. It's like what you don't really want it to be automated, and there's not really a way of speeding up. Because if you know how to use the system, which all ops teams are going to have to do, other than when you're starting out.
So what do you say? You don't think that an AI is going to take over for this stuff?
No, because for things, a perfect example is a sales builder or a purchase order builder if they create one. By the time it's asked me, what do I want my field to be? What do I want this to be? What do I want that to be? And it's probably got it wrong once or twice on at least one of the fields, or the line's wrong. I could have just built one. I could have built 3.
Right.
I appreciate I know how to use BC, but I'd hope that by the time I'm finished with a client, they're also able to pick up and use BC.
Right.
So I'm going to say type. I think for the money that you'd have to do to get me wrong, you can develop these things, right? You can develop the AI on BC to be useful and to probably do things that would save you time, but that all comes back to cost and value and getting it done. And out the box currently, I'm going to say hype on my side. I don't see the use of it yet.
Okay.
I'm excited to be proved wrong.
I think it'd be interesting to see where it is in another 5 years' time.
That's it.
But
exactly.
On the CE side, I'm saying Copilot Studio. I think there's a lot of power in there now. Just even if it's just bots, because it was what was called Power Virtual Agents, and is now called Copilot Studio. I'm amazed they've not tried to rebrand it as Power something actually. But
Power Agents.
Power Agents.
Power Rangers.
Power Rangers. They should call it Power Rangers. Let's see how far they get with that one. It'd be like when they try to rename Dataverse. Common Data Service, they try to call it Was it called flex something or power something? I don't know. Somebody somewhere will know straight away off the top of their head.
Leave it in the comments.
Yeah, leave it in the comments.
We'll read it.
Yeah. Yeah, but absolutely. So yeah, I think I think we got to some level of conclusion there.
I think
All right.
C, you got some level of use for BC, not quite as in depth, but as we said, we'll revisit in a few years,
Yeah.
and potentially I could be joining you, and you might be on this side.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows?
I doubt it.
Who knows? Will it have gone the way of the hype?
Will hype be the word? There'll be a new word. I feel like even I'm getting on nowadays with all the new terms that are being coined. I hear some of them, I'm confused.
Confused. That means you're getting old.
Yeah, I'm getting there. Joining you, Phil.
Cheeky bugger.
Anyway,
All right,
I think
cool.
let's go get some food, go have a pint.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go.
Thank you very much
All
for
right.
listening.
Thanks, guys. Bye.